Hey everybody, we are going to talk about the West African Kingdom of Ghana today. So, this should all be review from your reading and questions that you did on Monday. So, remember, I want us to remember that when Ghana becomes a kingdom, and later Mali and Songhai, these kingdoms are going on at the same time as the Middle Ages in Europe and kind of the end of those. And if you look at the dates of Ghana, the Kingdom of Ghana is around the same time as the Golden Age of Islam, where the Abbasid dynasty is leading this, Islamic educational revolution in North Africa, Middle East, and Spain. So this is all going on at the same time. So the Kingdom of Ghana is known as the Land of Gold because of its wealth. Ghana was the first West African trading kingdom. So it's really the first time that we see this development from cities to an actual kingdom, the collection of cities under one ruler. No one is really sure when the Kingdom of Ghana began. 500 CE is about what is believed. Some historians say could be as early as 300 CE, but we know it lasted till the 1200s. The reason we don't know a lot about the beginning of Ghana is because they had no written records, and we talked about that in the last lesson. We get our information about Ghana through the Arab scholars that visited the kingdom later on. But we don't know when it began, but we do know that Ghana was a very powerful empire. Ghana was able to expand its boundaries and build this kingdom through the use of advanced technology in the form of iron making. They were able to make stronger and better weapons that could easily defeat their neighbors. And so these warriors expanded the boundaries of Ghana. Through this expansion, they gained control of the trade routes, which we'll talk about. And through gaining control of the trade routes, they gained great wealth through gold. If you look at the map, you will see that Ghana is perfectly located between two rivers. The Niger River, which we talked about in our last lesson, and the Senegal River. The location is perfect because, as we learned, rivers are significant to a civilization, right? Used for fertile soil and irrigation and transportation and drinking. And if Ghana is going to be a big trade empire, then they're going to need to use the rivers for transportation. So a lot of benefits to its location. So you read about the TransSaharan Trade, this trade between North Africa and South Africa. And so I'm going to take a few minutes to explain this, so make sure we are paying close attention because this is kind of the meat of the lesson. Trans-Saharan trade. Trans, the prefix trans means across. So don't make this too difficult. Trans-Saharan trade means across the Sahara Desert. Trade across the Sahara Desert. So it's between North Africa and West Africa. Trade was very difficult because you do have to cross the hottest and one of the largest deserts. To go one way, it was about 1,200 miles. And like I said, travel was difficult. It was hot. It was dry. You could get lost. And if you got lost, you may lose your source of water because you're in a desert. There's not a lot of water. and it could lead to death, and it did happen. One famous historian and traveler wrote about how that they got lost. This caravan, this group of travelers got lost, and there was no water, so they had to kill their camels and drink the water that was inside. All right, so trade was difficult. So let's talk about the actual trade. So we have North Africa. North Africa had an abundance of salt for two reasons. They had a process of evaporation. The earth was salty, and so they would dig a hole and they would pour water into the hole, and the water would bring out the salt. And then because of the hot climate, the water would evaporate and leave the salt behind. Another practice they did was they would mine. They would dig into the earth, and because the location of North Africa was once the sea, that kind of receded, it left behind salt because it was salt water. So they would be able to mine the salt. So North Africa had an abundance of salt, but they needed gold. As you can see by the map, North Africa is right next to Europe. And we know how much Europeans love their gold, right? They use it for coins. They use it for, wealth and personal gain and trade. So in order for North Africa to be able to trade with Europe and with China and their silks, they would need gold. West Africa had an abundance of gold. They had gold mines in the forest of in the south of West Africa. So south of Ghana, there was rainforest that had mines of gold. Now these mines were kept secret. No one besides the few West Africans that traded knew where the gold mines were, and it was kept secret. And there's records that these West Africans were captured to try to get the secret of the mines, and they chose to die instead of giving up the secret. We still don't quite know where these gold mines are today. It was kept that secret. The West Africans had very little use of gold. Only pretty much the king focused on gold. West Africans needed salt. They needed salt because it was valuable to their health. Being in a hot climate, you sweat a lot and you lose salt. And to replenish the salt in their body, they needed to trade with North Africa. Also, salt helps preserve meat so it doesn't spoil. So in a hot climate, you need to preserve the meat because it would spoil quickly, so you need salt. And also, they enjoyed salt on their food for flavoring. So they needed each other. And so that's why it's called the TransSaharan Trade, is because North Africa and West Africa, you had to cross the Sahara Desert in order to trade. I hope that makes sense to you, because this is very significant to understanding why West Africa, these kingdoms that we're going to talk about, were so wealthy, is because of this trans-Saharan trade, this across the Sahara Desert. Now, they traded other things as well, not just salt and gold. North Africa had many goods, and one of them included European weapons that they traded with West Africa. West Africa had ivory and jewelry, animal hides, but they also had slaves, which we'll talk about. So an important part of the trans-Saharan trade was the use of camels. That's the only reason this gold salt trade was successful, is because camels had a lot of advantages. They could transport greater quantities. You can carry more on a camel than you can by yourself walking. And they could carry these greater quantities long distances. Unlike horses and other pack animals, camels were able to go 40 days without water because they stored the water in their humps on their back. So animals are these camels could, are better equipped to cross the desert and be these kind of transportation vehicles for these caravans. Also, camels were able to keep sand out of their eye. They didn't sweat unless it was at least 106 degrees, so they were able to do well in the hot day and the cold night. So camels were the best suited animal and kind of improved transportation. Can you imagine walking across the Sahara Desert? That would be terrible. And it was very difficult and very deadly. So camels really helped increase and make trade easier between North and West Africa. So one of the things that happened with trading in Ghana is there was this idea of a silent bartering, where trade was not done face to face. What it was done is usually conducted by a river. And so here's the steps. So North Africans would leave the trade goods by the river. They would beat the drum and they would walk several miles away. So they would leave, let's say, salt at the river, and they would beat the drum and walk away. The drum was to symbolize to signify that they're done and that the West Africans can come. So once the North Africans left, the West Africans came. When they heard the drum, they would travel to the area, usually by boat on the river. They would put some gold dust next to the goods, that kind of the amount they think it's worth. They would beat the drum and leave. North Africans would then return. If they accepted it, if there was enough gold dust, they're like, that's a good trade. They would take the gold and leave. If they did not, they would retreat and wait for more gold dust to be brought. This process of the silent bartering would continue until an agreement was made, until the North Africans were satisfied and left. The West Africans would take their salt or whatever goods, and the trading was done. The groups never met face to face. And silent bartering, you think, well, that sounds very difficult. That sounds confusing. Why did they do this? Well, there's some advantages to it. The people of North Africa and West Africa spoke different languages. In North Africa, the most practiced language, Arabic, was not yet popularized in West Africa. They had their own native language. So to avoid any kind of conflict or any misunderstanding, they did the silent bartering, right? To avoid conflict, because when you speak different languages, you might not quite understand each other, and there might be disagreements, which would lead to conflict, which would kind of maybe end this trading system. So it was perfect for that. And it also protected the gold mines of West Africa. This kind of secret, silent bartering kept the gold mines of West Africa secret still. It protected him. All right, so there's a little bit about Trans-Saharan trade and silent bartering. In the next section of the video, we are going to talk more about the Kingdom of Ghana.